Legendaries are the most important units in each TFT set. They are the centerpiece of late game comps because of their unique traits and special abilities. Set 14 is no different in this regard, and in this video I want to take a closer look at how you can get the most out of your legendaries. But before we get started, I just wanted to mention that we're getting closer and closer to the 100,000 subscriber milestone. I'm super motivated to reach this in set 14, so you can expect a lot of quality content in the upcoming weeks, and you definitely don't want to miss that, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for all the support. Let's get started. Making her first appearance is Aurora, who is one of the most versatile legendaries. The first time she casts her ability, she swaps position with the leftmost unit on your bench and grants that unit a large amount of attack speed. She continues to fight from the bench, and once the swapped unit is taken out, she returns to the board for the rest of the fight. Effectively, this means you're getting a 2-for-1 deal, making her one of the better pickups in late game, even if you're not playing Anima Squad. Now, which unit do you actually want to swap in from your bench? You can't swap in another Aurora because she is not a viable target for her own ability. Units like Sejuani sound appealing because she's quite tanky and has a large AoE stun, but here you run into a problem. Any unit that joins from the bench is traitless. Even if you have 6 Bastions on your board, Sejuani would join the fight with only her base armor and magic resist. You can't bypass this restriction with an emblem either, which leads to most players gravitating towards 2 choices: Ugot and Zed. While Ugot's traits are useful, he works perfectly fine without them. He makes great use out of the bonus attack speed, and during his cast he can deal some serious damage even if he doesn't have a lot of items. One of the best parts about Urgot is that he can execute a low HP unit once every cast, which tends to be one of the enemy frontliners. He also has a chance to drop gold or item components for every unit taken out this way, making him one of the best backline choices if you feel your frontline is already strong enough. If that's not the case, then you're probably looking for Zack. Since he doesn't even have traits, there is no downside to benching your Zack. The only thing you need to keep in mind is to swap in Zack every time you want to roll, so you can collect bloblets and then return him to the bench once you're done rolling. Even though it doesn't look like he's gaining HP, you don't have to worry, he will receive all of the stats from the bloblets. These are the basic strats for Aurora, but there is a lot more you can do with her. For starters, you can place her in the front line. This grants her bonus mana from damage taken for an earlier cast and has the additional effect of blocking a frontline hex. If your opponent has a melee heavy board, this can be a good strat to mess with their pathing and protect one side of your board. You can push this tag to its absolute limit with the augment Hall of Mirrors. By transforming every unit in your frontline, not only do you bring in 7 units from your bench, you can also block off your entire first row. In this mirror matchup, the enemy Shivanas were basically useless until the filler units were taken out. A less extreme version is to utilize the artifact Suspicious Trenchcoat. Each copy counts as a new unit, meaning you can pull 3 additional units from your bench. This is perfect because now the squishy trenchcoat copies are safe and sound from any danger on your own bench. One strategy that hasn't seen that much play yet is to focus more on the bonus attack speed part. As 2-star, Aurora grants a very respectable 100% bonus attack speed to the swapped in unit. Someone like Zeri makes pretty good use out of this because you can easily skip both Exotac and Rapid Fire on her. You can try to combine this with the Augment Shock treatment for a lot of potential damage. Next up, we have Garen, arguably one of the greatest utility units we've ever seen in TFT. By himself, he is actually quite useful as a melee AD carry, but when talking about Garen, it's usually about his unique trait, God of the Net. After fielding him for a few rounds, you receive a selection of 3 different mods based on the traits you have on your board. These mods act as consumables and let you add the selected trait to one of your units, but they are quite different to emblems. For starters, they don't consume an item slot, allowing your main carry to cap out way harder. On the downside, the mods don't add towards the trait, the unit will only benefit from it. For example, you need to have 2 Gold Nox units on your board for the Gold Nox mod to grant damage amp. Besides Gold Nox, the most popular trait mods you can find are Strategists, Bruiser or Divini Corp, but there are plenty of other options as well, depending on your board. If you want to be fancy, you can try the Exotac mod because it allows you to equip Exotac items on any unit without needing an emblem. You can also make any unit into a Syndicate Kingpin this way for the bonus attack speed and max HP shield. In case you're wondering, not every trait can appear. You won't be able to find AMP, Nitro, Cyberbot, Boss or Cypher, since they don't have any emblems either. But what you can do is to manipulate the board in your favor to increase your chances of finding a mod you're looking for. If you hover over the God of the Net trait, it will tell you how many rounds are left until you receive the next mod. If you know one is coming up, you can change up your board. Let's say you're playing Divinicorp Executioners and want a Divinicorp mod for your Rengar. You can remove Varus and Graves from your board and place duplicates for 1 round to reduce the total amount of possible traits. You're not guaranteed to find what you're looking for, but you can improve your odds for a better late game if you have enough HP to survive running a weaker board for 1 round. Outside of the general strategies, you can actually cook a lot harder with Garen than most players are aware of. If we go back to the previous Divinicorp example, there is something else we can do. The Divinicorp emblem is very popular and you will see it on a lot of units like Rengar or Zed, but it is weaker than a Divinicorp mod since you lose an item slot. What you can do is to use the mod on the unit with the emblem. This will cause the emblem to drop off the unit for free without having to use a magnetic remover. If you ended up using your removers too aggressively, this can be a potential fix for your late game board. Finally, there is one more tag you can utilize. Another big difference between emblem and mods is that the mods apply to all copies of the same unit. If you use a Bastion emblem on Zed and you're playing 2 of them, both of them are now considered a Bastion unit. This also applies to other copies from augments like Cloning Facility or Trickster's Glass. You can get a lot more value out of Garen mods this way, and this is definitely something you want to keep an eye out for. The next legendary on the list is Kobuko. Compared to the other two, there is honestly not that much you can talk about. Don't get me wrong, he is an amazing unit, easy to fit into a lot of comps, and has a very powerful AoE stun, which is perfect against melee heavy boards. You can isolate him if you want, because his passive pretty much guarantees the first cast, but he fits into a normal frontline as well. Something to remember is that he has surprisingly good AP ratios, making him one of the best late game holders for the techie emblem. You have Bruiser with Mordekaiser and Cyberboss with Viego, and with the high amount of bonus AP you get from the emblem, he can put a serious dent into the enemy frontline early into the fight. Outside of vertical techies, he's also worth playing in Viego reroll, especially if you have the augment New High Score. Towards the end, this augment grants you a free Ziggs and a free Kobuko, which is incredibly valuable. In reroll comps, it can be quite hard to find specific legendaries, and with this augment, you can fully focus on upgrading your 3 stars while having 4 Cyberboss guaranteed in your back pocket. While Kobuko is undeniably useful, anything pales in comparison to Renekton. This crocodile is an absolute menace in set 14. Blessed with an amazing ability and useful traits, he is easily the contender for the best legendary in the set at the moment. He gains bonus health and wounds enemies in his first cast, starts to dash towards his targets, and deals additional damage with his attacks. Initially, it looked like his bonus attacks would be incredible with items like Ginzo or even the Flux Capacitor, but unfortunately, it doesn't exactly work like that. Nevertheless, there is a lot you can do with Renekton, especially based around his Overlord trait. He takes a bite out of the unit behind him, dealing 40% of their health as true damage, and then gains 40% of their health and 33% of their attack damage in return. In theory, you can make him bite a high HP unit like Mono 4-star and then have him run around with ridiculous amounts of HP, but he appears to work better as an actual carry. Taking a bite out of a Senna 3-star in a Divinicorp Slayer setup grants him a crazy amount of stats, and even a 1-star Renekton can be strong enough to clear the enemy board by himself. But there is more to his bite hidden beneath the surface. For example, you can take a bite out of non-champions as well. This includes Golemfi, Dummyfi, and the golems from the starting encounter. He does receive less stats from non-champions, but considering how high the base stats of some of these units are, this is still easily worth it. I wouldn't be surprised to see an additional nerf throughout the set addressing this strategy. When you're not feeling like chomping on golems, you can also try to chomp your own tail. I have no idea why this works, but it is possible to create a Renekton bite chain. It might not be the best strategy, but hey, at least it looks hilarious. You can also do something more useful with the Suspicious Trenchcoat. If we go back to the example with Aurora, we can have Renekton deal 40% of her max health at the start of combat to make her split as fast as possible. She still needs to take damage from any source before the item will trigger, but this is a pretty good setup if you're looking to create 3 copies of a specific backliner. Speaking of backliners, let's take a look at Samira. Arguably the most interesting tech involving Samira is to put her in the front line. There are 3 main reasons why this can make sense. First of all, she will cast faster because of damage taken. Second, she jumps melee anyway, so it's not like she's staying perfectly safe in the backline. Third, she has a lot of Omnivamp in her kit. Samira tends to be quite safe during her cast as she is unstoppable and heals for a significant amount. This also means you might want to look out for augments like Find Your Center if you know you're committing on either AMP or Street Demons. The other tier 5 backliner in set 14 is Urgot, and for the most part, players just consider him a filler unit to activate 5 Executioner or farm components and gold. But there is much more to this unit than you think. He has an interesting ability that grants him a lot of attack speed and makes him lock onto low HP targets within 5 range. This part of his ability scales with attack range, so in theory, if you give him a sniper's focus or fish bones, he can target the lowest unit across the entire board. The problem with playing Urgot this way is that the very valuable execute might get wasted on a weak filler unit in the backline, instead of finishing off the main tanks in the enemy frontline. There is definitely an argument to be made that Urgot can become weaker if he has more range. Unless of course you can make him target the enemy carries. He only has 50 mana, so it's not difficult to make him ult quickly into the fight, but how do we get him to bypass the enemy frontline? The solution? Zed. He throws a shuriken at the furthest unmarked enemy within 4 hexes and teleports to them. One of the problems with Zed is that he often teleports away before finishing off his initial target. Combining Urgot with Zed is a match made in heaven. You position Urgot in the 2nd or 3rd row, so he is within 5 range of the target. Zed is positioned in the 1st row on a hex that makes him target the enemy corner. The damage from Zed quickly grabs Urgot's attention and you can cheese your way to victory. Next up is Viego. He is a Golden Ox techie with a unique trait called Soul Killer. In short, the way it works is that you get a golem if you place him for the first time or if he didn't contribute to any takedowns. After each fight, the game grants you the highest cost enemy he helped to kill. While Viego can be played as a carry, especially in vertical techie, he is more commonly used as a utility unit in late game. His ability shreds for 20%, he grants you an additional unit, and you can use him to activate Golden Ox for the Garen mods. What's interesting about Viego is that he works similar to Conqueror units in set 13. It's not enough that Viego deals damage to a unit, he has to be alive while the unit is taken out, otherwise it doesn't count. To get useful summons, you need to either have enough damage items so he can finish the job himself, or have tank items so he stays alive long enough. Viego is also one of the best users for specific augments. Any cybernetic augment is great because the bonus unit from his trait will always have one fitting item and therefore fulfill the condition for bonus stats. He is also great at min-maxing augments like bulky buddies or lineup, since you have an extra unit to play around with. The last legendary in set 14 is Zack. He quickly became one of the most popular filler units for a very good reason. After fielding him on your board, you have a chance to see bloblets in your shop that you can buy for free. For every bloblet, he permanently receives more HP and AP. Once he drops to 10%, he splits into half with 50% of his maximum HP. After splitting, no item effects will work anymore, so you can't abuse him with augments like high voltage. However, the copies won't lose the stats from the items. This makes mana items like Protector's Vow incredibly valuable, because not only do you receive a large shield on the initial Zack, both copies will spawn with an additional 30 mana as well. He is also an amazing holder for the Suspicious Trenchcoat, since every copy can split again, resulting in a very chaotic fight that is heavily in your favor. Now, I already mentioned before, if you pair him with Aurora, you want to keep swapping him between your board and your bench to collect the bloblets. In one of your future games, this could become quite relevant, because Zack 3-star will fill up your shop with infinite bloblets. Obviously, this is a good thing since you have a guaranteed free win, but there might be a time where you might find yourself in a spot where you want more than one 3-star legendary. To solve this dilemma, you want to bench your Zack 3-star, because once he's on the bench, the bloblets will disappear and you can use your shop like normal. This pretty much covers everything I wanted to say about legendaries in set 14. Was there anything I missed? Let me know in the comments. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.